Are we good to go?
We are. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. As you know, the Longwood fire was one of the largest fires in Victoria's history. Victoria being a state that is fire-prone, it actually has one of the most severe fires for a number of reasons. Terrain is one of them, rugged country and a lot of fuel, and it's a windy state. But this Longwood fire in particular, it stretched to over 144,000 hectares. It burned for a month. And although the loss of life was small relative to other fires, one person died. His name was Max Hobson. But the loss to property was massive, right? So, we had nearly 200 houses destroyed, nearly 8,000 stock losses, including 1,500 cattle, nearly 6,000 sheep, 486 beehives. And so it went over 5,000 kilometres, around 5,000 kilometres of fencing was destroyed. And a lot of productive farms were also lost: apples, cherries, nuts, olives, grapes, and so on. The community, 4 months on, is still reeling from this fire. I've spoken to a number of farmers about it. The testimony is harrowing. During the peak of this hot period, telecommunications went down, and they were down for days, and it just compounded the distress, and it also compounded the kind of the after-fire activities, the clean-up, the rebuild, and so on and so forth. And this is not the first time this area has been impacted. It is prone to disasters. This community has experienced compounding impacts from floods in 2023, 22, now fire, and now, of course, they're dealing with the fuel and fertiliser crisis. So it's almost too much to bear. My questions relate to the issue of temporary disaster roaming. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the telcos are progressing this issue of temporary disaster roaming, please?
Yes, we certainly can, Senator. We just need a couple of different people, given the specific question about temporary disaster roaming.
And please be aware this testimony will be going to that community. They'll be listening to it.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator. Claire Chappell, First Assistant Secretary, 000 Custodian. Happy to update you on industry's progress towards enabling temporary disaster roaming. It's an industry-led initiative. They have been through 2 stages of testing. The first stage of testing was looking at TDR in a controlled environment, if you like, not a live environment. The second stage of testing, which occurred through to March this year, was testing the technology in a live environment. We understand from meetings with telcos that was successful testing. The next step will be that they will provide us with a report, and that is due to us in June this year. They have committed to and have indicated they are on track to have TDR operational for this high-risk weather season, which is in October this year. Commences in October this year.
That is actually really, really good news. Thank you so much for that. What's the latest on the mobile network hardening program? I guess this speaks to resilience. And how many solutions have been delivered recently, and what kinds of solutions are being delivered? This is particularly pertinent for these areas which are disaster-prone and with really rugged terrain. It's incredibly difficult to fight these fires when they come.
Thank you, Senator. Sam Grindhard, First Assistant Secretary, Connectivity Division. So yes, the mobile network hardening program has been running for some years and has rolled out many hundreds of projects, and indeed many are still contracted to be delivered. I might ask Ms Lindsay just to give us the exact numbers that have been delivered and are still in progress to be delivered to communities.
Karen Lindsay, Acting Assistant Secretary, Regional Mobile Infrastructure Programs Branch. Over 3 rounds of the mobile network hardening program, we've funded 1,690 projects. Of those, 1,888 have been delivered and 465 are in progress. 37 have been withdrawn for reasons due to the project's previously been completed or lack of access to the site. The sorts of projects that the program has funded are battery upgrades, physical site hardening, backhaul or transmission upgrades, and portable and permanent generators.
Okay, that's good. Could you give us a state-by-state breakdown? And on notice, particularly for the Murrumbidgee Shire, what has been delivered in that region? On notice, that would be useful.
Yeah, Senator, we will do so.
And just with respect to these acute emergencies, what would be the role of UOMO in these circumstances?
So, Senator, while the relevant officials are coming to the table, there's a couple of things I'd say in respect of the universal outdoor mobile obligation. The first is that it will provide baseline services for both voice and text wherever you can see the sky. It is important to distinguish that from the full 5G data streaming service that terrestrial mobile can provide, but it will provide baseline voice and text everywhere. The other thing that the bill will do, because it is technology agnostic, it will provide government with the ability to set rules and standards for mobile networks in a way that doesn't currently exist. I think it's important to understand that the first part of what I described relies on low Earth orbit satellites, but the rules and standards provisions in the legislation apply to any type of mobile connection, be that terrestrial, mobile or satellite delivered. But I'll just ask my colleagues to see if there's anything they'd like to add to that.
Sure. Nicole Power, Assistant Secretary, Universal Services Branch. A key element of the Universal Outdoor Mobile Obligation is really about expanding coverage into areas that have no terrestrial coverage, and that includes ensuring that all operators need to provide that service on a national basis. So whereas there may be instances where certain communities have some coverage via Telstra or another provider, effectively the Universal Outdoor Mobile Obligation will ensure that communities, no matter where they are, have access from a range of providers. And so that also is focused on ensuring that people are able to connect in times of need, noting that currently in areas outside terrestrial mobile coverage there is no capacity to access 000 or make contact with other loved ones other than via the current limited D2D SMS service that Telstra is operating. So that will clearly have a benefit during times of emergency. As Mr McKay said, in relation to the standards powers under the bill, it is a pretty broad power that could go to a range of things, which includes steps that industry may need to take to prepare better to ensure that coverage remains available as much as possible.
Do you want to comment a little bit about what kind of devices people would need to make this work?
So currently, the service that's in operation from Telstra is available to a certain set of devices that is available, being provided by Telstra on a no-cost basis to provide it to customers on a range of plans. There is work happening at a broader scale, both within industry and internationally in regards to mobile phone standards, to expand that range of phones that will be available, so we do expect that to increase over time.
But it is certainly true that in order to be able to access services provided direct to device by satellite, hardware that is compatible with that operation is required.
Yeah.
So it won't be infinitely backwards compatible.
Correct. So there'll be a bit of education required.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Of course, the Universal Outdoor Mobile Obligation, whilst the extension comes from the direct-to-device, it obviously leverages the very extensive terrestrial mobile systems too, and obviously there's no change required for people who currently have terrestrial mobile to be able to access that service.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the Strengthening Telecommunications Against Natural Disasters program, otherwise known as STAN?
Yes, certainly, Senator. That is a change of personnel, but just give us one moment.
So, Senator, the Strengthening Telecommunications Against Natural Disasters program, STAND program, $14 million was announced by the government in March 2025 to extend the operation of NBN Co's Sky Muster satellite community Wi-Fi services at evacuation centres and emergency coordination points through to December 2027. In August of 2025, NBN Co was awarded a $9.01 million grant to extend the operation of 1,068 existing sites and commission up to 500 new sites. States and territories were given the opportunity to nominate for those 500 sites, and as a result, 412 nominations were received, and those installations are currently underway.
Okay, great. Could we get a breakdown of which states those are in? That would be
certainly happy to provide that.
That would be helpful. Just going back to, sorry, I wish I'd done this earlier, but going back to the backups that we talked about with regards to the hardening program, you might be able to answer it. I mean, interested in the role of battery backup, particularly for some of these towers which are in hard-to-reach places. The community of Murrindindi have requested that they have 72-hour backup. And I recall a Jason inquiry I was on, a climate misinformation inquiry, where we heard from the EV Council some really interesting testimony that electric vehicles are being driven to these places and are being used to power dialysis machines, for example, for days on end. And I was just wondering what kind of technology or innovations are being considered to provide this kind of prolonged support when crews are coming in to get power back online.
I will see if my colleagues are able to provide anything on that question. The mobile network hardening program funding that we were discussing a moment ago includes funding to increase battery backup, but my sense is that will relate to specific battery installation, which is slightly different from ability to power a site from, for example, an EV. But I will ask my colleagues to see if we can assist.
Senator, the other thing I'd note, so we've talked about the mobile network hardening program, which is, as you've noted, about extending battery backups. The other thing I'd note is the Telecommunications Disaster Resilience Innovation Program, which the government has funded. That's funding, I believe at present, there were 29 projects on 27 of which I think are still in progress. And what that's funding is exactly the sort of things you're talking about, innovative projects with telcos, infrastructure companies, researchers to look at new ways to enable power to be extended for longer, to make it easier for the community, for example, to switch out services to make sure that the tower continues to broadcast in the case of an emergency. There's a whole range of different projects and they're listed on our website. Most of those are to complete soon, and we're hoping that there'll be some really interesting new innovations that have been funded there by the government in partnership with industry and academia to come up with new solutions for communities in those sorts of situations.
What are your last one? What are your timelines just on delivery? Because that sounds really interesting and very pertinent, right?
So, Senator, the current end date for the rounds is 30 June 2027. So we have contracts in place with various proponents, and they are completing those projects out to 30 June 2027.
That's wonderful. If you could, at the next meeting, next estimates, or just provide us an update on that, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.